Hello, everybody. So, thanks to coronavirus, of course, I've got some time on my hands, so I'm going to make another tutorial for y'all. I apologize for how busy I've been. Life happens, and I just really haven't had time for much crafting at all, which really sucks. But today, some of you asked for a layered vinyl t-shirt, and that's something I love to do. So that is what I'm going to do today. So as always, you're going to start with new project. And I'm going to upload an image. You probably saw it in the previous screen. It was that cute little cow. So I've already uploaded it because I've used it. Of course, if you want a different image to upload, just go to upload. To do layers, you really want to use obviously an SVG or a PNG, but it needs to be something you can break apart, basically, if that makes sense. I'll show you what I mean on this next screen once I do insert images. So what I meant by that was this. As you can see over here, it's grouped. So because this cow is in this nice little group, we can ungroup it. And then I'm going to do a little bit of what I call image manipulation. If you're just here to see how to layer vinyl onto a t-shirt, you can probably fast forward pretty significantly, but this is something I do a lot when an image isn't necessarily perfect or exactly what I'm looking for, or I just want to make things a little bit easier on myself or save some vinyl. So I'm just going to show you guys how to alter images a little bit. Pretty simple. Most of you probably already know, but this is something that's helped me a ton with my Cricut projects. So first, I'm going to take out what I don't like. I don't like that the glasses have two dimensions, basically. Nothing wrong with that. If you want to leave them, more power to you. I think it's just as cute, but I just don't really want to use that much vinyl, to be honest. So the next thing I'm going to do, because like I said, I want to do some image manipulation, and what I want to do here is put this on a white shirt. So if we're putting this on a white shirt, we don't necessarily need this big white vinyl chunk. That would just be kind of wasting a lot of vinyl. So since I'm putting this on a white shirt and I don't necessarily want a vinyl chunk, I'm going to start with hiding the glasses and the little bandana. And you can see now we're down to just the black and white. I'm going to do what's called slicing. That way I can get like the black image of just that black part, and the white would basically be the t-shirt. So slicing is really useful, and you'll see what I mean by that here in a minute. So I'm just going to highlight the whole thing, making sure both the black and white layers are selected. And then I'm going to click this handy little slice button. And what that has done is break it apart for me. So there's that white layer I didn't want, and there's the black layer. And now this layer is just black, but it'll go perfectly on a white background. So I'm going to get rid of these other two layers I didn't like. And you'll see we need to do a little bit more image manipulation because we have our little bandana, and I'm going to send this to the front to show you guys what I mean. If we were to layer this on top, we wouldn't have those cute little polka dots on the bandana. So I'm going to hide that again, and I'm going to go back and re-show that white layer that we cut out and show you guys what I mean by image manipulation. So I am going to this time use the weld in this and then slice tool because I want those polka dots on top of the white bandana, but I don't want to use this much white vinyl. I'd really rather just have the little polka dot section. So there is a really nice way to cut that out. There's a couple ways to do it probably, but one way that I do it a lot is I use shapes and then I'll slice it. So I basically just put in some squares and then I cover everything that I don't want in there, which is, for us, I just copied and pasted another square. Or for this project, it's going to be everything but those polka dots. They're really not even polka dots. They're like, I don't know what they are. They're kind of oval. But, so I'm covering everything but those, and I'm just copying and pasting continuous little squares. I know this looks really bizarre and weird, but it's going to get me what I want. And if you have like an awkward little nook or cranny that you're trying to do this in, just go up here, unlock it, and then you'll have a little bit better shape for the part of the image you are working with. So this is by no means cute, but I'm not really trying to make it cute. I'm just trying to cover this stuff, and you guys will see why it doesn't matter what it looks like as long as everything's covered here in a minute. I'm just going to copy and paste one more. Okay, so now that I've put all those little squares on there, you can literally only see the polka dots. That's perfect. I'm going to come over here, and just so I don't miss anything when I go to slice, I'm highlighting every single one of those squares. On my Mac, I press Command and then click through each one of them. If you're on a PC, I think you'll press Control or Windows and then click on each one of them. So I'm highlighting all the squares at the same time, and then I'm going to click Weld. It's going to make that all one layer. I don't know what's happened. Yeah, of course. That's fine because we're not keeping that anyway. So the next thing I'm going to do is highlight the welded layer and the little white layer, and then I'm going to go back down here and slice it again. So now I can take out this gray cow and my little welded layer, as well as this little white stuff, and we're left with just these polka dots for our white vinyl layer, which is exactly what I wanted. So now we can put things back together and see what it's going to look like on our shirt. So I'm going to send this to the front, which all I did was right click or double click depending on if you're on Windows or Mac, and then click send to front. And then I'm going to put it on top of a little cow. And then I'm going to also right click or double click and then send to front again, so I can, as if we're going to layer those, which we are, so that's what that'll look like. And then this would be the very top layer, and that'll just go on her like that. So that's what I want for my image. Now I'm going to go over here to templates so that we can see what it's going to look like on a shirt. I just typed in shirt on templates, and I'm going to do classic t-shirts. And up here you can change the size, style, and even the color. Like I said, mine's going to be on white, so I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm going to highlight the whole thing, just put it in the image middle of the shirt just so we can see what it's going to look like. When you look at the entire size, you can see it's 11.6. I don't think the regular green mat will let you cut anything bigger than 11.5. So make sure that your image, by both standards, is at least 11.5 or less. I will do like 10.5. That'll be fine. So that way it'll completely fit on my mat and not have to use too much vinyl. And that's just the size kind of a standard. I usually use like a 10, a 10.5, 11, or 11.5 anyway for my shirts. So now that our image is manipulated the way we want it, I can go ahead and press Make It. And this screen is where I find out how much vinyl I need for each color. So there's another little bit of manipulation you can do here. But before I show you that, I want to point out something really important for shirts, and that's this mirror tab, or button. You want to make sure the mirror button is clicked on or green for every single layer. And that's because when we do this, it's going to be flipped, basically. So now, for my white vinyl, I'm going to rotate this a little bit just so I can use, whoa, I don't know what happened there, just so I can use as little vinyl as possible. And then these should be fine. That's fine. Well, if I rotate that one, it won't make much of a difference. But so that looks good to me. You're going to make sure, like I said, mirror is on for all of them. And then you're ready to move on to the next step, which to do that, you just go press continue. And it's going to connect to my machine, hopefully. This sometimes is spotty with me. Sometimes it's really quick. Sometimes it takes a while. So we'll see. I apologize if you can hear my washing machine in the background. Okay, so there it is. I'm going to pause from my screen and go show you guys the view from my actual Cricut machine now. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is just make sure I have the appropriate sizes of vinyl I need. I got really lucky when I was looking for vinyl for this project, and I actually had quite a few scraps that are the right size to work out perfectly. So while I'm deciding what size of vinyl I need, I really just pull up that Make It screen that we were just on, and I look, and for white it looks like I need at least like a 7x4 piece of white vinyl. I found this perfect little scrap. And it is a 12 by a little over 4, so I'm going to take out my handy little cutting tool. And I'm just going to cut to where I have 7 inches. You do not have to do this. You can use a whole sheet of vinyl if you want. I just like to waste as little as possible because, as you can see, I'm fond of using scraps when I can. So to load the mat, we're just taking off that plastic, set it aside, and then I'm going to take my vinyl, shiny side down. I don't know if you can even tell, but this side is obviously more shiny than the opposite. And then I'm just going to load it in that top left corner, just where it is on the computer screen. If yours is somewhere else on the computer screen, please put it there. So I'm just putting it on there, shiny side down. Whoops, this mat is not very sticky. I thought I chose one of my good mats, but I guess I did not. I'm gonna move this a little and see if that helps. Because some of it, nope. Okay, so we can use the opposite corner. Might actually be this vinyl. This vinyl is a little bit slimier. Not slimier, but flickier, I guess, than the vinyl I normally use. So I've grabbed my super sticky mat. Not that it wouldn't have worked because, well, that is gonna drive me nuts, you guys. Guess you're just gonna get to see how this folds out or plays out. I wonder if this side is any stickier. So a lot of times with Cricut stuff, this is just problem solving. So I've just moved it to the other side of the mat. Ignore that if your mat is sticking perfectly. Because I moved it to the opposite side of the mat, I'm gonna move it on my little, the display so that it's on the proper side of the mat as well. So all I'm doing is taking that image, you can't see right now, but I'm just sliding it all the way over. So ignore that, I apologize. And there our white mat is ready to be cut. So once we've got our mat ready, we're ready to cut. You can see on my computer, it's ready for us. My machine is ready for us. I'm just gonna switch the setting to iron on because that's what we're using, and it's gonna say that I did it here, and it's gonna say make sure mirror is turned on and material is facing shiny side down, which we did that, and then it's just time to load. So all I'm gonna do is slide it up, and then I am going to hit that load button, and it's going to feed it in, and we'll be good. So as you can see, it's loaded it. My computer is gonna tell me we're ready to press go. My machine's gonna tell me we're ready to press go, so that's exactly what I'll do. And it is going to begin cutting. When it's done cutting, our computer and the machine is gracious enough to tell us so by that flashing light and it saying unload mat, so that's exactly what I'm gonna do. And then we're ready to weed. So we're done cutting our white, so the next step is just to weed it, and this one's gonna be really easy to weed because it was just those polka dots. So I'm gonna go over here to that sticky edge, and all you're doing is taking off this top layer. There's gonna be like a white layer and then a clear plastic layer, and you wanna take off this excess white layer. So you just get it going, and then you're basically just gonna pull, and it's only gonna leave those polka dots, which are exactly what we saw on the computer screen. So that's all there is to weeding for this layer, so I won't talk about it much, but now our white is done. So now you're just gonna repeat those same exact steps for each layer. So I'm just gonna cut as much black as I need, and then as much red, and then as much blue. I'll load each corresponding mat. Of course, the shiny side, face down. We'll cut, we'll weed, we'll move on to the next color. So I'm gonna do black. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about weeding this one because it's a little more complicated, so it'll be a little more helpful. So again, you're going to take off, you're going to go to a corner, get it started, and try to take that black piece away from the clear plastic piece. And then you're just gonna pull and trust that Cricut did its job. So I'm just pulling that excess off. I work in a little bit of a circular fashion sometimes, so I apologize if I'm making any of y'all dizzy. It just kind of works better for me. And so I have this left, but of course that's not what we want, because in our original image it had all those little holes, right? So now basically what you're gonna do is just go through and find those little holes and dig them out. So like here, so the lighting is kind of bad. So I'm just gonna go through and find where there's those little spaces there's not supposed to be, using my weeding tool. And I'm gonna pull them out because I don't want those. So I have my image right next to me so that I know what needs to come out and what needs to stay, or at least where to look for little pieces. So all I'm doing is going through and getting all those little pieces that are basically like see-through on the mat or in design space. All of those are what you want to come out. There's like some tiny little pieces. So as you guys can see, I've pulled out everything that was pulled out on the computer. You will notice that I did not pull out those little polka dots, and that is intentional because we're cutting them out of the white anyway, and honestly I just didn't feel like doing more weeding than I had to. So you're more than welcome to pull those out if you want to. You don't need to, because that whole area is going to be covered in blue and then in white, so nobody will really ever know if you weed those out or not. If I would have thought about it when I was in design space still, I actually would have again manipulated the image and made it to where it didn't even cut those circles. So now we're done with our black mat. So now you can see we have each of the 4 pieces that we need. Ignore this little crinkled piece of vinyl. And we're ready to move on to actually pressing the shirt. You will notice I messed up a little bit when I was manipulating the polka dot image, and I took off some of these things that I didn't realize were polka dots. I thought they were part of Mrs. Cow here, but that is okay with me because most of where those went were going to be covered with the cute little glasses anyway. So I'm happy with that. If you're not happy with that, I apologize, and hopefully you can fix it before you actually start cutting. So the first thing I'm going to do is center my design on the shirt. The way I do that is I basically just measure how far the shirt is. And then I take how big my design was, which is 10.5. So I'm going to do 19 minus 10.5 divided by 2. That way I know how many inches to leave on each side. So based on that math, I need about 4.25 inches left on each side. This is just how I do it. There's a million other ways to center it. Some people eyeball, some people have this nifty little tool that I've been meaning to get. That's just what I do. You don't have to do that. It's just the way I've always done it and the way I like to. So 1, 2, 3, 4.25. I use my little things as reference markers. And then I remove the tape. And you are going to start with the bottom layer, whatever is the bottom layer in your design. For us, it's that black cow face layer. So this guy. And we're working one layer at a time here. That's the really important part about these multicolor heat transfer vinyl shirts. So that looks about center to me. To make sure, I always just measure. That's about 4.25. That's about 4.5. That's right at 5 inches. About 8. And about 8. And then I run it down the middle just to make sure it looks even on both sides, and it does. So this is good for my black layer. So I'm gonna move this to my heat press now. If you're using, well, it doesn't matter what you're using, whether you're using an easy press, what is that? Some black press. Whether you're using an easy press, an iron, or heat press, you're gonna do the same thing. Now that our black layer is on, it's time to press it. You're pressing one layer at a time here. So don't even worry about those other layers right now. This is what we're focusing on. So let's press it. So as I said, I'm using my heat press. I've got it set to 315 for 30 seconds. All I've done is put my shirt in there. We are in one of our guest bedrooms because my husband hasn't finished building my desk, so I don't have anywhere else to put this big bulky thing. So I've got it set to 315 for 30. Like I said, I've only got one layer on there. I've still got that plasticky layer on top, so all I'm gonna do is close it, and I'll just hold it until the time finishes. Probably not the best way to do this, but I don't like to move my shirt out of the press, so I'm just gonna peel off that plastic layer very carefully. It's kind of hard to do with one hand. Making sure to not get burnt because the top of your heat press is really, really hot. So that is what we have for that black layer. The next step would be the blue layer because it's the next most backwards layer, and it is just gonna go on top of the little bandana area like so. I can't exactly film and show you that at the same time because I need both my hands, but I'm gonna line it up as best I can and set it about there. So as you can see, I've lined up that blue layer as best I can with its little plastic. The problem here is there's no plastic covering the cowl. That, if we pressed it like this, we would completely burn this vinyl and it would be a hot, sticky mess. So what I do is I use a Teflon sheet because the whole image has to be covered when we press, and I put it on top of the whole thing. And then I'm gonna press it. Same thing when we're done. I'm gonna take off my Teflon very carefully, and then I'm going to even more carefully remove the little plastic piece. And now you can see the blue is on the black. Next step is the white layer. Again, white layer is my next most backward step, so I'm just gonna place it on the blue where it's supposed to go, and I'll resume after that because I only got 2 hands. So that looks about right for the white layer. Remember, I messed up and forgot these polka dots, which is why it looks crazy on that side. Again, I've left the plastic on. Now I'm gonna cover it with a sheet of Teflon. I should mention that this doesn't have to be Teflon. It could be one of those plastic pieces like from a previous project if you save those, or it could be the heat transfer vinyl transfer tape. Just something that protects that layer that's exposed, because if we left the plastic on there, then the vinyl wouldn't adhere to the shirt when we did our layers. So again, I'm putting on my Teflon and pressing. Now we have our last but not least layer, our red glasses. So I will press those, or I will place those and then show you guys. This is where I've placed the glasses and covering with Teflon and then pressing once more. Once again, removing the Teflon, removing the plastic. I don't really know if it's plastic, I just call it that. Now, because I'm crazy, I like to do one final press with just Teflon on the whole thing. The reason for that is that sometimes when we leave those plastic, it leaves little lines in different areas of the vinyl. You can kind of see one in the black right over here. So I'm gonna do a final press with just Teflon. Nobody gets plastic this time, none of my layers. And then I'll do that. And that is it. We are done heat pressing. So something I like to do anytime I am done with heat transfer vinyl is just what I call the pick test. Basically, I just pick at the edges, see if there's any weak points. If anything comes up when I do this picking, then I press again. Everything feels pretty deep in there, so I feel good about that.